guess you could say.
I'm tired, Mark. I want to go home.
I'm tired too. Well, how you guys doing? Mark, this is John. It's past midnight. We just got done with the Steven Seagal marathon.
Help.
Yeah, we watched, the two we just finished was, China Salesman and On Deadly Ground. For prepping in this review, I actually watched A Good Man.
And A Good Man.
Yes, that too. Because I found out Steven Seagal was in a lame movie called A Good Man. And some of you may remember I made a short film called A Good Man not too long ago that just recently happened to have been featured in this thingy. What is this thingy? Like, I don't know.
It catalogs a bunch of short films, and two of yours are in it.
Yeah, and that's cool. But as we all know, Steven Seagal is a bit of a meme nowadays.
Steven Seagal is he's a meme. He's a movie martial artist, and I like most movie martial artists, like Scott Adkins, Michael Jai White, Van Damme, Donnie Yen, Jet Li, Jackie Chan, Bruce Lee, the OGs, pretty much anyone, but I just can't stand Steven Seagal. The worst thing about him, besides the fact that he's a fat, pretentious, deluded, womanizing liar who can't act, is he's afraid to show any weakness. Like, every one of his movies, he's just unstoppable, barely ever takes a hit, and just total control over everything, never breaks a sweat, already has everything figured out, and it gets boring real fast.
Yeah, especially here, honestly. One thing you forgot to mention is Steven Seagal was also blessed as a deity as well, so Steven Seagal is literally a god.
He was a Russian ambassador or something.
Something like that. I know he's cool with Putin, but yeah, so Steven Seagal basically began with these really lame action movies, On Deadly Ground being probably his biggest movie. I didn't really expect much from it. I expected it to be decent, and I guess it was okay.
It's one of his best.
Yeah, and that's not really saying much, I gotta say. It was pretty lame, to be honest.
To be fair, it's one of his more entertaining movies. Like, his direct-to-DVD schlock from, 2000 onward is just rough to sit through.
Yeah, no, China Salesman was...
Well, China Salesman is an interesting outlier because it's not really a Seagal movie. It's like some random Chinese movie that Seagal happens to be in, and Mike Tyson is like a secondary antagonist who has a good 15 or 20 minutes of screen time, but Seagal's only in a couple scenes.
Yeah, and even then, even the scenes he was supposed to be in, he was CGI'd into the scenes with the
motorcycle.
Bike helmet.
Yeah.
That he hardly did anything. His part was completely irrelevant.
Another interesting outlier about that movie, I think it's the only time Seagal ever loses a fight.
Yeah, but it's clearly not him. It's clearly a stunt double.
Yeah.
So you were saying that they probably did that behind his back?
Yeah.
There's no way he saw this movie.
Yeah.
He doesn't care enough to watch his movies.
Yeah, because one, the Chinese government probably made it, and they're like, we don't care what Steven Seagal thinks. 2, it's Mike Tyson, and 3, like especially the last part of the fight, you never see the two of them. They're both their faces on screen at the same time, so it's
Yeah.
pretty clear that they tried to edit around it with stunt doubles. And speaking of editing, the editing in China Salesman is trash.
It's like if ADHD was a movie editor, he
Take
was
a
the editor of this movie.
take a shot every time you see a shot longer than 5 seconds, and you will not get very drunk because there aren't many in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to say, China Salesman was easily I think, my least favorite of the three that we watched. I really don't know which one I liked more than over On Deadly Ground and A Good Man, to be honest. Like, A Good Man, I think, was better than I thought it was going to be. And On the Deadly Ground was honestly kind of not as good as I was expecting. I'll explain my rating later, but like I was expecting to give it a little bit of a higher rating, and no, at this point I'm just sitting here like it gets so old that you don't care. Then again, it's also past midnight,
So something else I find fascinating about tonight is these two movies are both propaganda. China Salesman is Chinese propaganda about how awesome China is and how they can develop Africa with their amazing cell phone towers, and
On Deadly Ground is very environmental. Fuck the oil companies.
It low-key promotes eco-terrorism because all the bad guys are these oil tycoons who don't care about the environment, don't care about the natives, and are huge dicks to everyone about everything, and all they care about is money, and they'll kill people and do whatever. And the solution to the problem is, unironically, Steven Seagal has a bunch of weapons and explosives stocked up, and he's going to use it to blow up the oil rig, and that's how they solve the problem.
Yeah, because in every movie, Steven Seagal tries to pose as your average dude, but in actuality, he's like secretly the most dangerous person alive.
Under Siege is like that too. They do the exact same spiel where it's like, when the SEALs have a mission they can't fail, they would call him in.
Yeah, and I feel like that's just his MO. It's like, yes, if you put me in a movie, I have to be this character.
Yeah. Well, it's because he has no range, and also because he comes from the Frank Dukes era of pre-internet. I can make a story up about me and no one can fact check it, and I can build my career off it.
I like what you did there with the Frank Dukes reference. I like that. Yeah, one of my favorite Van Damme movies was Bloodsport, and then I watched a movie all about Frank Dukes in real life, and I was like, oh, it hurts, but movie's still great.
Yeah,
but,
I like Bloodsport. It's fun.
It's better than any of these three movies, I'll tell you that.
It is better than any of Seagal's movies.
Yeah.
The least terrible Seagal movie, in my opinion, of the ones I've seen, is probably Out for Justice, and that's like a generous 5. I gave it like a mercy 5. At best, it's average.
I know this technically doesn't count, but I think my favorite Steven Seagal movie was probably Machete.
That's been on my watch list for years.
I love that movie. Steven Seagal is, I mean, it's not really a spoiler, but he's essentially one of the villains in the movie. He's actually pretty funny. It's almost like he plays into this is like the one time I can actually give him a pass of being how he is. But honestly, yeah, no, other than that, I'm not impressed with pretty much anything. So one of the questions I had when I wanted to watch these two movies was maybe On Deadly Ground was actually secretly pretty good, and maybe, I don't know, like, maybe he used to be decent and now he's awful, but no, he just was always lame. I, I guess. How are we rating these again? Or I guess I should ask, how are you rating them?
I will give China Salesman for the bad editing, bad dubbing, bad acting, and bad storytelling overall a 2 out of 10. The only redeeming factors being some unintentionally funny moments and just the fact that Mike Tyson is in it as much as he is and is kind of amusing.
Yeah, I agree. I was maybe gonna give it a generous 3 if like maybe the ending was actually decent, but like I didn't care at all.
And you can't understand anyone in the movie because the Chinese leads, when they speak English, they have their accents are so strong you can't understand them. And Seagal, you can't understand what he's saying. And Mike Tyson, you can't understand what he's saying. And the villain Michael, who
Is probably the most cartoonish villain I've ever seen in a movie.
You can't understand what he says, although he's a character Will would love playing.
I want him to play that character now, honestly. Yeah, so for China Salesman, we both say a 2. For A Good Man, I actually gave it a 4 because it honestly was like everything apart from Steven Seagal was actually decent. Like the side characters had a pretty decent story. Steven Seagal actually did stuff. He didn't just Aikido people or sit down like he does in most of his movies.
Did he snatch every motherfucker birthday?
He did, and I still, even now watching the movie, I still don't get it. But
it makes sense. It's just a poor choice of words.
yes, but that's what I'm saying. Like even then, I'm just like that's still. I was hoping maybe I could see some kind of context, but even that didn't help. But yeah, so I gave it a 4 because honestly, it's still just bleh. It ends with a very unnecessary sex scene that was just kind of out of right field. But yeah, on Deadly Ground, I was thinking that I was probably going to give it a 5, but after watching it, I am also going to give that a 4 because I mean honestly, the most redeeming thing were some of the other actors, and I mean it was definitely much more professionally done than the other two.
Yeah, that was like a real theatrically released movie.
Yeah, so I can at least give it that bit, but even then, it's still Steven Seagal being Steven Seagal.
Yeah, I also give it a 4. Like, there's stuff I appreciate about it, like, it feels like a real movie. There's beautiful nature scenery of Alaska, which Alaska is awesome. If you've never been there, visit it.
I have not.
I liked like the practical stuff in it. I liked the matte painting backgrounds. You never see that in movies anymore. But Seagal's very one note as usual, and the writing, like I said before, is just so one-dimensional. And again, it's kind of low-key an eco-terrorist movie, like, and
no,
it's
it really
it's a
like,
weird
it
vibe.
Really is, yeah. Yeah, no, like he hypes up the fact that I'm technically the good guy even though I'm committing acts of terrorism.
Yeah. You really think that some spirit animal's gonna come down and convert all the gasoline cars to electric? No, we have to take matters into our own hands.
That was so mean of him too. Yeah. Like that was just so like.
And he went on a spirit journey earlier in the movie too.
Yeah, where a JPEG or PNG image of him fell into the. Yeah, that's just.
Yeah. And the speech at the end, which is extremely preachy, even though he does make some decent points in it, which was supposedly originally 40 minutes, but they cut it down to a few minutes after a disastrous test screening.
It felt like 40 minutes, honestly.
I think they cut it down to a good length. I think I wouldn't want it any longer than that. It didn't annoy me or irritate me as much in the end, though it does feel like the movie ends very abruptly. And you gotta admit, Steven Seagal had drip in that movie, even though that jacket was probably a little culturally insensitive. You gotta admit, mad drip.
Yeah, no, it was. I'd wear that jacket. I really would. I feel like my dad watched On Deadly Ground and worshipped that movie for a bit because, I don't know. Yeah, so I guess we'll wrap up then. Thank you guys for watching. Anything you want to add? They already know all the like, subscribe, all that stuff, you know. I'm just,
No.
Alright, well, in that case, I guess
We gotta go snatch every motherfucker's birthday.
Yeah,
We gotta go do that now.
Alright, we'll see you guys in the next one.
I'm getting up too because I always stay.
Yeah.